Hey everybody, today I'm going to do a little bit different of a video. Obviously tomorrow night we have UFC Vegas 69, Andrade versus Blanchfield, live from the UFC Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada. I've already given my predictions, my previews, and my betting tips, but for this video in particular, I'm going to be giving you the best bets for this weekend's UFC Vegas 69. Now, are all of them going to cash? I hope so, but I obviously can't guarantee that. But when it comes to breaking down the card, when it comes to looking at the best ways to make money, not so much the best odds to play in terms of cashing out big, this is how I believe you should play the field tomorrow night. So we're going to start off with the first fight of the night with the Dana White Tuesday Night Contender Series fighter in Clayton Carpenter. He started at like a minus 280. Minus 270 on the money line. He's been bet all the way up to a minus 315. Now, minus 315, that's your parlay piece. Your parlay piece for this week, your main parlay piece is going to be Clayton Carpenter. I know the kid's only 6-0, and I know he won via decision on the Dana White Contender Series, but this kid has good jiu-jitsu. He has decent understanding of range, distance, and movement when it comes to the striking on the feet. His technique isn't the best with his striking, but his ability to mix in his kicks, go same side punch kick combinations, and mix in the takedowns with his superior top control jiu-jitsu and submission game, going up against a guy in Juan Camilo Ronderos, who has only had one fight in the UFC, and yes, granted, it was on short notice, but he got taken down and rear naked choked with one arm by David Dvorak. Dvorak at the time was a pretty, decent prospect, and he's kind of fallen off as of late. And the fact that he could get submitted by Dvorak, who's not known as a submission guy, makes me believe that when Carpenter gets him on the floor, even though he doesn't have as much that much experience, Ronderos only has 5 professional fights as well. And, he has good boxing, but I think the ability of Carpenter to mix in the kicks on the feet, paired with his top control, his submission game, I think eventually he's going to grab the neck of Juan Camilo Ronderos and get a submission. So the parlay piece would be Clayton Carpenter on the money line at a minus 315. And if you want to play it a little bit different to get better odds, I would say play the under 2.5 rounds, which you can get on DraftKings at a minus 165. That's really good odds, and I don't see the fight going the distance. And then if you want to get a little bit risky and you want to play an actual winning method, I would say to take Clayton Carpenter by submission at a plus 250. Those odds are really good, but I think the safer play is Carpenter on the money line or the under 2.5 rounds. Up next is going to be Jim Miller going up against Alexander Hernandez. He's a pretty sizable underdog. He started at like a plus 190. Now he's down to a plus 185. Hernandez comes back at a minus 215. And listen, the more powerful striker is going to be Hernandez. The more technical guy on the feet is going to be Alexander Hernandez. The cleaner, sharper fighter, Alexander Hernandez. The younger fighter, Alexander Hernandez. But I still like Jim Miller. Hernandez got knocked out about 2 months ago. And it was a beat down. It was a, death via accumulation, a lot of unanswered shots, and just got taken out. Hernandez is great in the first round. He can get anybody out of there. He knocked out Beneil Dariush in the first round in his UFC debut. The guy has the skills. He just doesn't have the mental side or the gas tank to go along with those skills at times. He went down to 145. Now he's back up at 55. But getting knocked out and beat down by Billy Quarantillo just 2 months ago, a little over 2 months ago, I believe, and coming in against Jim Miller, who's on a streak, who showed that he has knockout ability, who showed that he has the ability to finish a fight. The guy's a finisher, and he's finished 4 out of his last 5 wins inside the second round. So I like Jim Miller on the money line at a plus 190, plus 185. I also like the under 2.5 rounds. If you think Hernandez is going to get the job done, he more than likely would finish Jim Miller with his striking. That comes in at a minus 190. And then the best bet, but it's also the most risky, which I wouldn't parlay, would be Jim Miller to win in round 2 at a juicy plus 900. Like I said, 4 out of his last 5 wins have come inside the second round. Hernandez always has a really sharp first round, but then falls off a cliff going into that second round if he can't impose his will and get you out of there. So best bets, the money line on Jim Miller at plus 185, the under 2.5 rounds at minus 190, and Jim Miller to win in round 2 at a plus 900. But I'm rocking with the underdog in Jim Miller this weekend. All right, up next is going to be how to play the main event between Jessica Andrade and Erin Blanchfield. Listen, I always say I'm not the biggest fan of betting on women's MMA unless it's some of the highest level women in the sport. And it doesn't get much more high level than Jessica Andrade, former flyweight title challenger, former strawweight champion, former bantamweight women's, contender at one point in her career, early on in her UFC career. She started out at 135 pounds. Now going up against Erin Blanchfield, Blanchfield is going to have the grappling advantage. She's going to have the submission edge. And she's very good in a position where we've seen Andrade have a lot of trouble in the past, which is the crucifix position on the ground. Valentina Shevchenko was able to finish Jessica Andrade from the crucifix position. Now, is Erin Blanchfield at the level of a Valentina Shevchenko? No, she's not, but she's very good from a position that we've seen Andrade struggle in. But when it comes to breaking down the fight, I think that Blanchfield's defense on the feet in terms of striking is not that great. She has good stance switch combinations. She mixes up her combos on the feet pretty well. She has a good lead high kick. She's actually knocked down an opponent with a lead left high kick before. She can mix it up between the punches and the kicks, but her defense, her head movement, it's kind of just not there for me. And against a power puncher who has the forward pressure, who has the cardio to push throughout the 25 minutes, who has the championship experience at the highest level of MMA inside the UFC, I'm going to side with Jessica Andrade to get the job done here. But when it comes to the best bets, if you're on the Andrade side, I like Jessica Andrade on the money line at a -130. If you want to go with the Erin Blanchfield side, I think the only way Blanchfield gets this done is by submission, because we know she's going to have the advantage on the ground. It's just, will she be able to close the distance and get the takedowns and put Andrade on her back? If she does, I think that's possible. And at a +450 for Blanchfield by submission, if you're on the Blanchfield side, I think that's the way to play it. But I think the best overall bet is the under 3.5 rounds. I don't expect this fight to go the full distance. I don't expect it to get to the 5th round. I like the under 2.5, but I like the under 3.5 rounds a little bit more, because it is possible we could get a later finish depending on how good Blanchfield's cardio is, and if she can take the damage of Andrade's striking on the feet and the power that she possesses, and can Andrade stuff the takedown and keep the distance, but also get in her face to put those combinations on her. So when it comes to breaking down the fight, my pick is Jessica Andrade by a late 3rd round TKO. But when it comes to the best bets, I like the under 3.5 rounds the best at -145. Then I like Andrade on the money line at a -130. And if you're on the Blanchfield side, I think the only way to play it is Blanchfield by submission, which is going to give you a juicy almost 5-1 at a +450. So if you're on Blanchfield by sub, Andrade on the money line. But the best bet overall, under 3.5 rounds at -145. Up next is going to be Nazim Black Wolf Sadikov going up against Evan Elder. I like Sadikov on the money line. I mean, if you look at his Contender Series fight, man, this guy's counter ability, his boxing ability, his technical striking when it comes to his hands on the feet is just very sharp. And I think that Evan Elder is good. He has a lot of heart. He's not going to be easy to put away. But I think if anybody can put Evan Elder away and expose his defensive irresponsibility when it comes to the striking, it's going to be a guy like Black Wolf, Nazim Sadikov. I think his boxing, like I said, his right hook, he likes to go body, head, and pair it up, changing levels with his boxing combinations. You saw it on the Contender Series, a right hook to the body, a right hook up top, and he even rolled underneath in terms of a potential counter. He's good at coming over the top of the lead hand of the orthodox fighter, so look for him to come over the top of the jab with the right hand. Look for him to throw that check hook and then come over with the overhand, the right hook to the body, and just mixing up his combinations and being aware enough to maintain distance when he needs to, and then close the distance with really solid counters. I think the counter game and the boxing of Nazim Sadikov is just going to be too much for Evan Elder. It's not going to be easy to get Elder out of there, but we've seen his fight IQ isn't the best. He can put himself in some positions over and over again without realizing that those positions are dangerous, but he can still have the heart to survive, and you have to worry about the heart and the durability of Evan Elder if you're on the Sadikov side, because it's not 100% likely that Sadikov's going to get him out of there, but I think with the technical ability and the power he possesses in his boxing, training alongside the likes of, Matt the Steamroller Favola, the UFC Bantamweight champion, and Aljamain Sterling, Merab Dvalishvili, I think he has the technique and power to get Evan Elder out of there. But when it comes to a bet, I like Sadikov on the money line at a -195, and then I like Sadikov to win by KO TKO coming back at around a +215. All right, and that's going to be it for my best bets and best plays for UFC Vegas 69 Andrade versus Blanchfield. Let me know in the comments section which fights you are looking to target, whether it's DraftKings, whether it's FanDuel, whether it's a sports book. Just let me know what you guys think are the best looks. Let me know your best underdogs for the week. Let me know your best plays overall from a betting perspective when it comes to UFC Vegas 69. I'm your host, Double M. This has been the UFC Vegas 69 betting tips, and I'm out. Have a good night, everybody.